Hey guys, this is Rocket's Help Desk. I'm Julia,
And I'm Megan.
and we're here today with Andrew Marcinek, who has created models of help desk in many other schools, and we're here to ask him a few questions about it.
Well, thank you for having me, Rocket's Help Desk. It's great to be with you guys and to share some of the experience that I've had with help desks and bringing this type of learning and this type of course paradigm into different schools. So excited to talk with you guys. I'm excited you guys have this course running, and I've been following your work and a lot of your blogs and your presentations that you've been doing at MassQ and other conferences, and it's really great. And I'm just excited to be here and share the experience.
So what do you think inspired you to start Help Desk in Burlington initially?
The initial inspiration came from when we launched our one-to-one iPad initiative. We were bringing on roughly 1,100 iPads for every student in our high school, and what we could foresee was that the day-to-day support for this device, because it was such a change agent in the course of education, that we were going to need day-to-day support there to make it work. And we decided to utilize our best resource, which was the students. And not so much the students that loved iPad or loved technology, but the students who were, driven and self-directed, that could learn in a kind of a different learning environment. And learning environment I talk about a lot of is called interrupted learning, where you might be working on a project and all of a sudden Wi-Fi is not working on iPads, and you have to kind of stop what you're doing, help the person you're working with, and then also and pick back up and keep going with what you were doing. But the inspiration is derived particularly from Apple's Genius Bar. If you go into an Apple store on a Saturday morning, what you see is what my vision for the course wanted to be, where you'd have the idea of having teachers and students be able to have a place where they could drop in and get support, that it was always there, and not have to log a ticket and wait for that ticket to be addressed by the tech department, which was already spread pretty thin at Burlington, having to cover all of the other schools as well. So it really helped cut out a lot of the tickets that our tech department would have, and gave us a great support throughout the high school.
So how do you think that grassroots initiative or interrupted learning is beneficial, and what have been its shortcomings?
I think the benefits, I could speak. They're endless. A lot of the benefits are the idea of having this type of course and the way it's taught and the way it's structured. It's kind of structured how work and how life is structured. I think about my day, and I think about how people work in different industries, and how their days are interrupted either by something else going on, and they have to really organize their day and organize their projects and what they're doing. They have to collaborate with people. They have to work with people that they've never maybe worked with before. It's not like forced group learning. It's actually the collaborative nature of the course. Actually, it's required. It just becomes evident, because if somebody doesn't know how to do something, you might need to know where you can find the best answer. So it's driven a lot by inquiry and just knowing how to be resourceful as a student, which are all transferable skills to higher ed and what's quote unquote, I don't know what the term for it is these days, but the real world. Apparently there's this world out beyond high school. I know it's crazy to think that is actually real in comparison to what you're experiencing now. So I never liked the term the real world, so I'll just call it like the world in which you're eventually going to find yourselves in, and it is real, I promise. But yeah, and some of the downsides I think were, or I should say the drawbacks, which you mentioned, is that sometimes it can go stale. Whether students aren't kind of like, I never wanted students to ever come to me saying I have nothing to do in this course, or I have nothing going on. What should I be doing? Because I always felt there's something to be done. Whether if we didn't have people coming in asking us to troubleshoot problems, then there was ways to begin researching new updates for applications, researching ideas. I had students working on passion projects where they would be researching and trying to figure out more about something they were passionate about, interested in, kind of taken from that idea of Google's 20% time, where employees got 20% of their schedule where they could pursue a passion that they had. And I think that's one of the things that is left out of a lot of education and typical educational structures, is that a lot of what you're done, what happens in school is you're told what to do. You're told to take this. You're told that you have to go to this course. You're told you have to do this homework. And you never really get a chance to really explore what you want to do. And so that's what I think this course is. One of the great benefits of the course is it really provokes that idea of student-driven learning, elicits intrinsic motivation, and really gives you a chance to explore your passions, and yeah, that's exciting.
So you say that you had like the passion projects. Like, did you find that there was always something to do? Like, did you ever have any students come to you and be like, I don't have anything to do, or did they constantly have something to work on?
They usually had several things to be working on. Like I said, whether it was they were working on their passion project, and they also had self-directed timelines for those. They had to report a timeline on how, it couldn't just be I want to research autonomous driving cars, and that's gonna be the whole semester. Where they had to kind of cap the timeline and say, all right, on next Thursday I'm going to report out about this. We also had meetings where we would discuss updates. So I was one of the students to, like, in thinking about their blogs and and thinking about what they wanted to write about or what they wanted to research. I have them looking at Mashable. I have them looking at TechCrunch, a lot of technology forums out there. I've had them looking at Twitter, trying to find information about Twitter, or not just find information about Twitter, but use Twitter to glean information about different educational technology concepts and ideas, and then really work the idea of when apps have updates, apps we were using within the course of the school year were always being updated. So being able to get ahead of that curve, and just try and find the newest and the coolest, and that's what I wanted the kids to be able to brand themselves as. Be that person who your friends or your peers want to come to you. It's like, oh, what's the new iPhone going to look like? I'm like, I know everything about it. I know all the features, and I know all this what's going to happen because you've done your research and you know all the rumors and what's happening. So it was just kind of part being a journalist. There was part being a genius and working in the idea of troubleshooting problems. And then the other part was being a presenter, presenting ideas, presenting information. So I think there was always time to do stuff. There was always something to do. It was just a matter of kind of shifting that learning where, a lot of what you see in schools is kids are directed in exactly what to do. Like you have to do this, you have to do this, the end product has to be done in a PowerPoint, and then you think you're great. And that's what I was trying to move away from that, where I wanted kids to be able to, I didn't want to tell them what to do, I wanted them to be excited about going out and finding something that they could learn about or they could share with others. So.
Now, although your course isn't structured like others, how did you create a proposal? How did you create a subtle structure to your course in a proposal to the administration?
That's a great question. And so I was handed kind of a blank slate. The then principal of the high school, Patrick Larkin, said, we want to create this course, Genius Bar, kind of like Apple has, but we want to turn it into a course. And I said, okay, well, we can do the troubleshooting thing, and that would be great, but eventually that's gonna end. So a lot of what the proposal of the initial curriculum of the course, a lot of it was based off a book by Tony Wagner, Dr. Tony Wagner, out of Harvard. It's called Creating Innovators. He talks a lot about different learning models and different ways in which you can, what's important for kids when they're going, what kind of skill sets are important beyond high school, and what we should be focusing on now within the context of school. And so I used that book as kind of a guideline when I was drafting the proposal. And then I also consulted with Apple's geniuses and asked them, how they were hired and how they were vetted to get that job, like what they had to do. So I used a lot of that And then I turned that into the kind of the core of the course, what that would be. And then I also looked at standards. I looked at the standards for, Common Core, Massachusetts State Standards for Technology, and also Massachusetts State Standards for ELA. And I looked at those, and along with the ISTE standards. And so I looked at those standards, and I looked at what the course was going to be doing and what the kids were going to be engaged in. And I aligned those two together to provide further evidence as why this course is not just a typical elective where kids are troubleshooting Wi-Fi issues all day. It's a lot deeper than that, and I really put the educational value behind it to really drive, to be the driving force to get the course in play. And when you look at it, what I found is that all the skill sets you learn, whether it's in math class, it's in English class, it's in history class, all of those pieces, whether it's research, whether it's presentation, whether it's reading different types of materials, whether it's a nonfiction, fiction, whether it's any of those skill sets are all put to use within the context of this course. Gathering data about something. How do we know if we're coming up with the idea of Chromebook versus iPad, which is better? If you create your own data collection tool, do a survey with students, crunch that data, and then put it into a visual, and you're presenting information, usable information. So the kids were doing a lot of different things, and that was kind of the driving force. Like I said, tying it into the educational standards that we have, and really making that the change agent for it.
So, when you created your course, how did you get the word out to other people about it?
Could you repeat that question? Sorry.
How did you get the word out about your course once you created it?
Well, the first thing was, as far as within the context of our school, we did was, I did a good job of announcing it to teachers and primarily our department heads. We shared information saying, hey, we have this resource available. If you want to utilize help desk, if you want to utilize our student help desk team, they're available. And so when I connected with the department heads, what we saw was that they said, well, we want to create a blog, or we want to create this, we want to create that. And so what we eventually did was we had students assigned to or vetting out working with departments. We had a few students work and help the English department build their website. They built a WordPress blog. I think it's BHS English, BHS English department. But they helped them build their whole site. They worked on taking our vocabulary books that we use for SAT vocabulary, which everyone loves to do. And I love teaching SAT vocabulary because it's the coolest thing ever, and that's a lot of sarcasm under that tone. But they actually built a digital vocabulary companion that the English department could use, students could access, and they could get right from their iPads. So there was a lot of ways in which, and then that kind of caught on. And I always said, you try, especially with technology and trying to get people to buy into it, you try and create that Macy's window effect. Where you want people to be, that may be resistant or don't want to work with kids because it's like, oh, they're kids. I'm not working with them. I'm an adult, and that's just how I am, and that's fine. But you want to create, and what we started to see is that as the kids were really being used and resourceful, people were starting to look and kind of say like, huh, how did you build that website? It looks really nice. And then they say, well, we'll have the students help us. And so we started to kind of like that, boots on the ground, where we had to do our own in-house PR for ourselves, but then we let our work speak for ourselves. So, and then that kind of helped catch on. And as far as promoting ourselves beyond, I know you guys are already doing that. Before I even connected, I knew about Rocket's Help Desk. I knew you guys were presenting at MassQ, and I've seen you on Twitter, and I've been able to connect you. So using social media, something like Twitter, to connect with other schools, to connect with other help desks, and then even to connect with other schools where maybe you can help them to do something they're doing. I get a lot of schools that solicit me for information on, iPad launches or Chromebook launches, Google Apps, and all those tools. But there's no reason those schools couldn't be soliciting help desk courses or help desk kids to help them with that. So I think that's something where you begin to brand yourself, globally on Twitter, and it's not about getting 1,005 followers and 1,500 retweets a day. It's just about kind of making a small little dent in that environment, and just sharing what you have, sharing your work, and being proud of it. So.
Now, I realized at Burlington High School it was a very open environment, and they were very welcoming with the course, the principal even suggesting it. How do you think someone who's trying to propose this should approach a more resistant administration and staff?
Well, I think it goes back to the idea of we always treat school as a place where we prepare students for this real world, but we never looked at it through the lens of why school shouldn't be like the real world. And so why aren't you engaged in those things? Why aren't we engaged in skill sets and authentic learning and purposeful learning? So I think that's one of the big things, is that the idea of being restrictive around technology and restrictive around social media. It's part of our world. It's part of our world that can impact your image. It can impact your life. It can impact your career. There are a host of mess ups by political figures or celebrities on social media. And maybe if they would have been taught a little bit more about how these forums work or how these things, these services work, they could have prevented that. And so I always use the analogy of going back to, at one time in schools they didn't allow they would ban books. So they banned Catcher in the Rye because of the content. It was too difficult for students to deal with, and so there were many schools that banned that book and it wouldn't be taught. Eventually, we came around as a society and said, there are tough concepts in that book, but life is tough as well. So we need to be able to get ahead of these topics and teach them. And I feel the same way about technology. Technology is part of your lives. It's part of our global economy. It's something that is used prevalently. It's to my knowledge, it's not going away. It's only evolving and becoming more and more important. So important that I deem it as a literacy that you need to understand. So in that regard, I think it has a lot of educational value, and it is the literacy of this day and age, and it's only going to continue to grow. You look at the hour of code that was happening nationally a few days ago, and right there, I mean, you have technology is becoming such a prevalent part of our educational system and our society, and I think it's just very important to have that. You have a lot of students that I would always ask me, like, well, how do I work at Google? If I wanted to work at Google, which is a very wonderful place to work, how do I work there? How do I get to work at a place where it looks like a big playroom, it looks like a big preschool? If you've ever seen Google's offices, and they're pretty amazing, but it's one of the most desirable places to work. And I think I've always said, like, I wanted to treat the help desk course kind of like our Google offices. Like we would look like we're having so much fun, but underneath all of that fun, we're really getting work done. We're enhancing our skill sets. We're learning. We're seeking out questions rather than just trying to find answers all the time. So that's kind of how I wanted the course to run, and that's how I would always kind of keep it in the minds of the administration as we were discussing it and the future of it. So.
Well, on that note, I think we're all set with Mr. Marcinek. I'd like to thank him on behalf of Megan. It's just a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Rockets Help Desk. I'm glad you guys are doing awesome with your work, and we'll continue to follow you, and keep on going. I had nothing there. So.